Well, I think the reason the story garnered so much attention was that it was a very ordinary story about young people going to a Spanish island for a holiday.
Yeah.
It happens thousands upon thousands of times. But this ordinary story became very extraordinary, and all of these kind of things merely fueled the fire of the armchair detectives, the online sleuths, and all those people who have got nothing better to do with their lives other than to spread conspiracy theories, gossip, rumour, and claptrap.
Now let's look at this story, the British teenager missing in Tenerife. This is a tragic story, and you know, we all, with all of these kind of stories that come around once in a while, you hope and pray that this will have a good ending. It was his first holiday with his mates, his mum said. Debbie Duncan's 19-year-old son, Jay Slater, from Lancashire, went missing on Monday. He'd gone to the Canary Islands. Let's get some detail on this. Talk International presenter Maddie Hale is with us. When anybody goes missing, Maddie, it's disturbing. This is a 19-year-old. Tell us about the circumstances, tell us what happened and what we now know.
Well, yeah, so as you've said, this is his first holiday with his friends. He's only 19. His mum says that she encouraged him to go on this holiday with two of his mates, Lucy and Brad. He went to a big rave festival in Tenerife. Basically, it was from Friday through Sunday. He was out Sunday night, and he said to his two friends, I'm going to go home with these two guys, British men I've just met. The two friends said, oh, can you stay with us? Like, we don't even know these people. He said, no, I'm going to go home with them. And basically, he apparently went in a car for an hour to a little bit outside of the area, which was like, it was about an 11-hour walk back to his hotel. Stayed in this house for a bit, this Airbnb with these two guys. He was then spotted in the early hours of the morning asking a local woman how to get home, if the bus was running. She said the bus will be running in 2 hours. Basically, you have to wait for 2 hours. And then she spotted him 15 minutes later walking up kind of into this like mountain national park. And it's been described as like a very rocky terrain, not a great area because you can get lost in it.
Yeah.
So at 8:50 a.m, this is the last anyone's heard of him. He called his mate Lucy to say he's lost. He's cut his leg on a cactus. He's really thirsty. He only has 1% battery. The phone died. That's the last anyone's ever heard from him.
Wow.
Yeah.
So, and I heard one of the friends say that the area it was, wherever you look, there's just mountain from mountain to mountain. You can't, almost you can't identify anything. It's that sort of terrain.
Yeah. So he basically just decided, look, I'm going to make the walk home. I think he said to Lucy, I'm just going to walk back. I can't be bothered to wait. 11 hours. She has spoken to the mum, Debbie, and Lucy have both spoken to various media outlets, mostly print. The mum, Debbie, thinks that this is a kidnapping situation. The reason being is that she's had a few cryptic text messages and phone calls from people. Now, we don't know if that's just, a few freaks capitalising on the fact that her son has gone missing. She got a WhatsApp text from someone saying, kiss goodbye to your boy, you're never going to see him again.
The mother.
And calls, could you imagine?
And unless there is, I mean, you said that it seems like the police that's not their central lead. It could just be hoaxers. And that would be just a horrendous thing to do if you go to jail for a long time for that kind of stuff. But in a weird way, you sort of hope that it is somebody who's got this kid, but are not harming him, and there is a potential to get him back.
Yeah, and they've described him as very street smart, and this is very out of character, very suspicious for him to have, walked off by himself. And the things that Lucy, his best mate, says that she doesn't understand why he wouldn't have used his sense that she knows he has to just wait at one of the restaurants where he walked past and wait for them to open so that he could charge his phone. But he could have been just desperate to get back.
Presumably they've ruled out anything of the two guys who clearly carried on drinking or something like that.
The two guys have already flown back to wherever they're from. I know that they're British, but I don't know where they live. She says that one of the reasons why she's criticising Spanish police is that these two guys, these eyewitnesses, are already back wherever they're from.
Yeah.
They didn't get asked to stay.
Did they get talked to at all? Do we know?
I think so, but Lucy also tracked down the Airbnb and went there herself.
Yeah.
They said to her that he left in the morning to get cigarettes, that's spotted here about 7:38. He left the Airbnb and was wandering around, and that's where that local woman saw him around 8 a.m. Kind of looking about how to get home. So he had actually left the Airbnb. And then at 8:50 a.m. is when he made that phone call to Lucy to say he's lost, doesn't have any phone battery. So within that space, he had actually left the Airbnb.
But he'd had opportunities in that time, passing restaurants, so he could have got some water. He could have, you know, maybe, as you say, waited to charge his phone. But here's the thing. I mean, human behaviour works in interesting forms. I mean, at that point, he might have been thinking, I'm so desperate to get home, it's going to be worth the walk. I mean, how many people have got into difficulties because they've thought it's work. It might be 4 a.m, but I'm going to give it a go. At least I'll be in bed by 6 or something. Seems like a long way to. It could be as simple as that. And sadly, he's got into difficulties and got lost. And obviously, there will be concern 5 days later, almost, as to where he is. Or it's something a little more suspicious involving those phone calls. But it's going to be, again, everybody will have a theory on this, and I imagine the Facebook group might be helpful in one respect, but you are clearly going to get armchair detectives who are spewing a gazillion theories. We had it, you know, when the mother went missing, who was found in a river in this country.
Oh yeah, that's what. Yeah.
You know, that we had people turning up at the scene, so you know, with ideas of what they thought had happened. And
I think especially after Dr. Michael, his last name escapes me, Mosley, but after his obviously tragic. You know.
Yes, well, it has a similar sort of. He went, you know, going walking in the hills.
Exactly.
In a hot country.
Yeah. And you wouldn't. I mean, you wouldn't wish upon your worst enemy.
Of course you wouldn't.
For the mother.
And the fear of the mother and the family and the friends must be absolutely huge. And although you mentioned the temperature potentially at night going down to 1 degree, I'm going to take a punt here, but I think the weather in the daytime in this area is pretty darn hot at the moment.
Yeah, it is. But regardless, he is still in shorts and a t-shirt, even if it got down to, 12, 13 degrees. It's obviously cold to be walking around at night.
And this often happens when you're dealing with a foreign police force. And we saw it happen in Portugal with a very high-profile case of a missing child, that there was a sense that the police were not as forthcoming with evidence. Now, some say, well, that's because we're so used to police here, similarly in Australia and whatever, who will give a press conference and they'll come right out with it and they'll give an update. Not every police service works in that way, and clearly the Spanish don't either. And
it does get a lot more complicated when you've got the home country police operating an investigation with the interference of whatever nationality is of a missing case, or if it may be a crime scene or whatever. We saw, I mean, it was a big part of the Bali bombing story when, the Australian police went over to help the Balinese government and police, and how that was just, it's an uncomfortable process when you've got too many countries involved. But,
of course,
we hope it's a good outcome.
Well, of course we do.
Jay Slater, 19, from Lancashire, young bricklayer, on his first foreign holiday with his mates. He goes to a music festival over the weekend. Sunday night, he disappears. Well, he doesn't disappear. He goes off, we're told, with a couple of British lads who live in a rather remote part of the island to spend the night at their place. And on Monday morning, allegedly set off to catch a bus back to his resort, which is Playa de las Americas, Los Cristianos, which are the holiday towns there. And he went off to catch a bus, apparently missed it anyway, hasn't been seen since. Got a last phone call in saying he'd been cut by a cactus, was dehydrated and was lost. It was an 11-hour walk back to his resort, so that was a bit of an ambitious project. If indeed it had massive search going on, fears growing, of course, for his safety. Let's hope there's a happy ending, but I thought we might get the picture from the island. We're going to talk to an English guy who lives there, Andrew Knight, who is known as the Night Rider on YouTube. Have a look at his YouTube channel, The Night Rider. Hello, Andrew.
Evening, Captain.
Now, where are you in Playa de las Americas or Los Cristianos?
I'm in Los Cristianos.
Okay, you run a car hire place, yes? Am I right?
Car rental, yeah.
Yeah, car rental. Now I gather that you've been very generously lending your cars to the search operation. What's the kind of we'll talk about the search for Jay in a minute. What's the mood there? Because you know a lot of English people actually live there, like yourself, and also British people, I should say, and they're on holiday there. I mean, missing Jay Slater must be the talk of the town.
Yeah, very much so. There is a lot of concern between residents, tourists as well. Everyone trying to come together and do as much as they can, sharing it on social media. Very much the talk in all the bars, the restaurants, just trying to work out what's happened, where he could be, and finding him. That is the main concern. We're now in the 5th day of that search, and very, very concerning is the feel over here.
There's a lot, I mean, as is the wont in these situations, there's some really annoying conspiracy theories starting to emerge. Story in the Daily Telegraph here in London today saying that searchers are saying these conspiracy theories, as is the way, are starting to get in the way of a proper search. You know, it's things like he's got kidnapped and things like that. And some, or, you know, the ransoms are being demanded for him. I mean, I don't know, I'm not over there, but I think that sounds like nonsense to me. What we're talking about is a kid who decided to walk back from a very remote area of your island. Tell us a little bit about that remote area. I mean, I've seen the pictures on the TV. Very beautiful looking place, stunning place, but extremely remote.
Yeah, it's a very beautiful part of the island. It is Tenerife National Park, very picturesque, very mountainous, beautiful landscape, but with that does come a lot of risk. It is extremely barren. There's a lot of ravines, a lot of crevices, uneven underground. Up there as well, where you are, it's very thin air. I actually went up there yesterday for a couple of hours, and after an hour of walking around, I was absolutely knackered. It's very thin air and steep, uneven, cacti everywhere. You've got huge temperature swings as well. It's got its own little microclimate up there. It can go from 1 minute it being sunny, next minute it's raining, then you've got high winds, then you've got low cloud blowing over. And from daytime to nighttime, you can have a big swing in temperatures. So of an evening time, it's dropping down to about 12 degrees with wind chill. Then in the daytime, it can reach up to 28 in the sunshine. So you've got the weather mixed in with the landscape, as you can see, cliff faces, big drops, a lot of areas where you can fall, uneven pathways. It's very extreme, that landscape.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at it now, and you say you're up there. Was it yesterday? I mean, it does look like very rugged terrain. I mean, I don't want to be gloomy about this, but obviously fears are growing. Are the police working on the possible theory that somehow or other he's fallen, or he told this friend of hers, Lucy, apparently with this last phone call just before he ran out of power on Monday morning, that he was feeling very dehydrated, which I guess is not a good sign when you're walking through that kind of terrain. Are they thinking he might have fallen?
Well, the police today have come out and said there isn't really any particular update to give. They did continue the search today. They were down there with voluntary workers, the Guardia Civil, the voluntary fire service, and they continue to search one of the overgrown ravines there, one of the barrancos, Madre del Agua. They were down there searching very thoroughly through various vegetation, slowly making their way through. So they continue to work very, very hard. They are still continuing to hope for a positive outcome. And they will continue to do so until they get answers, until he is found and they get any form of information.
Well, listen, Andrew, thank you very much for talking to us. And it sounds like you're doing a lot to try to help this search, which, by the way, actually, last question before we just go. It looks like a pretty massive search going on. Coppers everywhere, people like you helping, dogs, search dogs. I mean, no stone is being left unturned, is it?
No, you've got drones, you've got various voluntary workers, as I said, Guardia Civil, local police, voluntary fire service, rescue workers, hikers, all kinds of different divisions, helicopters. Everything is going into this search. They are working very, very hard, and all of the resources are continuing to search for him as best as they can.
This very worrying case about a young lad called Jay Slater, of course, who's a missing teenager in Tenerife. I think we're in day 5 now, which is obviously very, very worrying. Something like 500,000 people have joined a group online that are now starting to post bizarre theories about it. We'll talk about that in a sec. But I understand our police have offered to help go and search. And the Guardia Civil have to go and support the Guardia Civil, but the Spanish police have said no. Is there anything actually we could do in a foreign country where we're not familiar with that we could offer practical assistance? Were you surprised that the Guardia Civil rejected the offer?
No, not in the slightest. The world over, policing is predominantly about control. The police control demonstrators, crowds at football matches, suspects, witnesses, crime scenes, and they're supposed to control each other. It is all about control. That is the very essence of policing. And clearly here, the Guardia Civil, who were following their own narrative, which I firmly believe says that they believe that Jay wandered off, had no water, no battery power, unfamiliar terrain, an injured leg, has probably wandered off and something unfortunate has befallen him. That, I believe, is the theory the Spanish police are sticking to. They do not want Lancashire police coming over. It was Lancashire that offered their assistance because they would surrender some of their control to Lancashire police. And let's remember, there's another factor that might be at play here. Lancashire police fundamentally failed to find Nicola Bulley on their own doorstep. So what chance has that organisation got of finding a missing teenager many miles away in Tenerife?
You put it rather bluntly like that. So I'm guessing you're saying you're not only not surprised, but it's not necessary, would you say, to send police over?
Yeah, exactly. The police in Tenerife have deployed drones, a helicopter, search dog, fire service personnel who are well used to that terrain through putting out wildfires and the such like, and police officers. There's a vast area to search, rocky terrain, gullies, outcrops, crevices, and the such like. It's clearly not delivered any results yet, and that unfortunately has allowed the conspiracy theory lunatics to run rampant on social media, which is exactly what they're doing.
And these things, they claim they hinder the police investigation. Is that because some people take it very seriously, what's going on? It means people are ringing the police up, they're distracting their time. What impact do things like this have?
Yeah, it's going to be irritating if people are ringing into the police constantly with their own theories, when basically these theories are based on their experience of sitting in their armchair and watching 2 episodes of Vera, because that's the extent of their detective experience. It is irritating. It can choke up the phone lines and be a nuisance. But the police can't have it both ways, you see, which is what they try to do. On one hand, they will say, this speculation is unhelpful. And then you'll find the following day, they'll say to the public, can you please help us with this case or that case? The police forever get themselves in a muddle with their handling of information and their communications with the public, and it would appear in this case it is no different.
For the first time, it would seem today, the police over in Tenerife, the Spanish police, are beginning to look into the background of Jay Slater, not least because earlier this month he was handed an 18-month community order at Preston Crown Court for violent disorder in a case which apparently, according to the judge, involved intimidation of witnesses, supply of Class A drugs and street robbery.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Spanish police in this case have sort of kept their cards very close to their chest. We've been going to them every day and saying, what are the new lines of inquiry? Right. Whereabouts is your search taking place? And it is quite an interesting development that they have come out and said, we are going to look into the background.
Yes.
They have said, I mean, this is a police source to Mail Online, have said that it's not unusual for police in missing people's cases to investigate the background in case it's relevant to the hunt. But they did add that this case is unusual because it's been a week and there have been no sightings or leads on him at all. That's confirmed sightings because there has been some CCTV that has come to light that the family has asked the police to investigate. So it is interesting that they're looking into that, very concerning case involving a machete and a golf club attack on a 17-year-old boy.
Right. And I mean, as far as the questions that are sort of being asked, I suppose, is that he went to this festival. He appeared to leave the festival with two men who were not his friends. And so obviously people saying, well, why did he not leave with his friends? Where did he then go? He went to a house, which we believe he left at some point after that to go and get some cigarettes, and then sort of disappeared, basically, supposedly, on an 11-hour walk back to where he was coming from.
It's very strange, the idea that somebody would embark on a sort of 10-hour journey when they have 1% phone battery. I mean, he spoke to his friend Lucy Law, who was on the island with him, and said by phone on that morning and said, I'm really thirsty, I don't know where I'm going. The Times has spoken to a woman who lives next door to the two British men who were in the Airbnb where Jay was last seen, and she told him apparently he was looking for a bus route, and she told him it was sort of over that way, gestured in, because she didn't speak English, he didn't speak Spanish, and he went in the other direction and started walking up into this sort of mountainous region. So it is very strange, and I think that's why the police are sort of focusing their attention in the search on that area of the mountain.
And yesterday's kind of developments were stranger still. Jay's mother, Debbie Duncan, who's been out there for a while, and for whom, as on her behalf at least, about £30,000 has been raised as a GoFundMe page. She suddenly comes out and says, I'm not Karen Matthews, who was, of course, famously the woman who was sent to prison for sort of faking the kidnapping of her own child.
Well, I think the family have been accused of all sorts of things. There's a Facebook group with 500,000 people in it following this search, looking for minute-by-minute updates. And there have been so many conspiracy theories that have floated around there. So I'm sort of not surprised that his mother has come out and said, just to make it clear to you, or, I just want my son back. Right. This has been the worst few days of my life. And she feels like she needs to clarify that to people.
And isn't it strange, though, that the way that sort of society operates in these cases now, a bit like the Nicola Bulley case, some people, we believe, went out to Tenerife to sort of try and help with the investigation, amateur sleuths, that kind of thing. Also some people on the Facebook page saying odd things like, should we halt the Euros because Jay was a big football fan, until they find him, let's just stop all the football. And people offering to send clothing, offering to send flowers. It's a sort of a strange, I would say, collective sort of almost hypnosis when something like this happens.
Yeah, I mean, hysteria, really. People just... It's that sort of armchair detective, isn't it? Everybody loves a bit of true crime. Everyone's trying to figure out what's happened. And but people do jump on things very quickly as well. That GoFundMe page, which was set up, a matter of days ago, has reached its £30,000 target. Right. This case it's really capturing something within certain, groups of the public. I was actually in Simi in Greece when Dr. Michael Mosley went missing. Right. And it was a very similar thing there within Facebook groups, within sort of communities. These ideas just spiral. And I do think there is an element of people genuinely wanting to help and thinking, have the police thought of this line of inquiry? But it does, as you say, that it can be characterised by that sort of, hysteria.
Right. So as far as you're concerned, this sort of development that his history is going to be looked into by the police, and his problems in back home are going to be investigated, that's just par for the course, you think, at this point?
I think so. I mean, as the police have said, there are no new leads, there are no new confirmed sightings in this. So I think they just have to keep their options open. Yeah,
indeed. Well, it's a fascinating case. Well, hopefully they'll find him sooner rather than later. Let's go back now to Tenerife, because Katie Davis is here, who is, of course, Senior Foreign News Reporter of The Sun. Katie, very good morning to you.
Good morning.
Help find our Jay, it says on page 19 of The Sun this morning. Missing teenager Jay Slater's mum said she has not given up hope of finding him alive, despite police saying it is likely that he's actually dead.
Yeah, so police sources said yesterday, so we're entering the 12th day today of the search, right, that if he has disappeared in the mountains, unfortunately at this point it is unlikely that they'll find him alive. Right. But there are other theories that maybe someone took him in, like a local took him in because they saw him, or there are other theories that you have to take with a pinch of salt that he might have been kidnapped. Right. But yes, unfortunately police do think at this stage, if he is in the mountains, he is likely not alive.
Because it's a pretty arid sort of desert-like sort of landscape, isn't it? There's not much there.
Yes, that's right. And a lot of people do go missing in Tenerife every year, and locals have spoken out and said that often when people do go missing, it can take months to find them because
Really?
the landscape is so vast.
Right. And so have people gone missing in the past and then been found alive then?
I think so, yes.
Right.
But I mean, there's quite a lot. So in the last 6 months, I think about 11 people have gone missing in Tenerife.
Right.
Who are still missing, and there's cases from over the decades where Brits have gone missing. There's a couple from the 80s who have never been found.
Right, interesting. And last time you were here, we were talking about Jay's mother, who'd gone out there. An amount of money's been raised for the sort of help to look for him, £36,000 in a GoFundMe account. She's asking for permission to use some of it, right?
Yes, that's right, Mike. So actually, this morning the GoFundMe page hit £40,000.
Wow! So people are still donating.
Yes, they are. Some people are donating quite considerable amounts. Some people like £600, others lower amounts. But yes, it hit £40,000 this morning, and his mum Debbie said yesterday she was working with GoFundMe to try and withdraw some of that money, as she'd like to use it for 3 different reasons. 1, to support the rescue teams working to find Jay. 2, to fly out other people to Tenerife, so supporters, loved ones, that kind of thing. And 3rd, for their accommodation and food, as they need to extend their stay out there.
And what's been the reaction to that? Do people sort of think, well, it's not really for you to spend that money? But I mean, I suppose it kind of is, isn't it?
Yes, it was set up by Jay's friend Lucy to help Jay's family. People did it to begin with. Internet trolls, as they do, questioned what is the money used for. But as Jay's mum said, that is what she's going to use it for. Okay.
And she's also calling in some sort of sleuths, amateur sleuths, TikTok sleuths. This is similar to the Nicola Bulley case, isn't it? Remember when a lot of people went to that part of Britain to sort of try and find out whether she could be found, and she was eventually found, you know, where everybody thought she was in the first place. But this is a strange phenomenon, isn't it?
Yes, it is. And we spoke to a search expert last week at The Sun, Charlie Hedges, who warned amateur sleuths against trying to join the search, as they can actually be more of an hindrance than a help. But yes, some TikTok sleuths, they have flown out to Tenerife, they've paid for the airfare themselves, they're filming videos. One in particular, Paul Arnott, he has about 153,000 followers on TikTok, and he shared, I think, about 66 videos at this point in the mountains trying to find Jay. But he claims that he's actually met the family yesterday as they wanted to meet him, and they support the work that he's doing. But I think we have to take it all with a bit of a pinch of salt with this sort of thing.
Well, that is the problem, isn't it? But it's very popular online, isn't it? There's a lot of people like seeing anything to do with this story about Jay Slater and the fact that he's gone missing on YouTube, on TikTok. You know, people are watching some of the stuff in their millions.
Yes, that's right. There's a lot of Facebook groups, a lot of TikTok videos, but unfortunately I think people, they didn't learn the lesson with Nicola Bulley or Kate Middleton, you know, peddling all these awful conspiracy theories when really they should just let the rescue teams and the police do their job and try and find Jay to bring him home to his family.
Right. And so, again, so as you say, day 12, it must be agonising and horrible for the family. Again, I think last time you talked about the mayor of some little town saying they spotted him watching the Euros. I presume that's been discounted now, has it?
I don't know if it's been discounted, but again, as I say, with this sort of, you have to take it with a pinch of salt. That was one comment from one mayor.
Right.
We haven't heard any backups to that. We haven't seen any pictures.
Who might have just seen a sort of 19-year-old who looked a bit like him.
Right, exactly.
Watching a football match.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah. So, I mean, I suppose it's just another waiting game then, isn't it? We're waiting to. Well, there's been no sort of official British involvement, has there? There's been no sort of police from here being asked to go out there.
No. So. Police in the UK did offer their help to Tenerife cops, but they said no thanks. We have enough resources, that kind of thing. But no, they haven't got involved this side of the pond.
Well, we'll just have to wait and see how it all goes. Casey, thank you very much indeed.
Now, Pete, Jay Slater, it was last Monday week that he went missing. He'd been at a music festival in, I think, Los Cristianos, had played as America, the holiday area of Tenerife. He apparently went off with 2 guys, British guys. These people are mysterious. Said to be black guys in their 30s. And they went to their place, allegedly, which is this villa in a very remote part of the northern part of the island. The following morning at 8 a.m. he rang his friend Lucy and said he'd left the house, he'd missed the bus, there was a bus back there, and he was going to walk. But his phone was running out of power. He cut his leg on a cactus and was feeling dehydrated. That was thought to be the very last time anyone heard of him. But stories emerged today from this guy, Brad, who said he phoned me while he was in the process of falling down some sort of shingle slope. So the theory I mean, first of all, these two guys, who are they?
Exactly.
Why have we not heard of them or from them? Why are the police not saying anything? We just keep hearing two British guys. I mean,
they could be. It is ridiculous, and I like the word you used before we went to the break. Vacuum. I find it fascinating that because this is a multi-agency search for one person on an island that, let's be real, is not the biggest. There has not been one major news conference from any department.
That is
there.
really, you pointed that, and it's a very good point. Why are they not appealing to the public?
Exactly.
That's usually an international trait of coppers.
Exactly. And, I find it interesting that it's 3 or 4 different agencies all working together, and not one of them thought, do you know what we should do? Maybe to stop these conspiracies, to maybe kind of get some help, talk to the public. I find that very fascinating, and I don't know if that's standard in Spanish authorities. I personally don't know. I'd be interested to find out, but yeah, that's one of the reasons that the internet has gone mental in all these different theories. But I do think conspiracy theorists, again, I think you're right. That's not the right word, because people are, some of it is mad. But I think there are important questions that people are asking.
Yeah, and he was said to be sort of highly inebriated at this last dance he was seen, and he does have something of a checkered past.
Yes,
he's got a conviction for violence back here. But apparently he's a sort of apprentice bricklayer now or something.
Yeah, apparently this holiday was to celebrate him coming off community release or something
well,
like that.
there you go. Okay, so here's another theory. This is that Jay and Lucy, this girl who, by the way, set up a GoFundMe and immediately raised very quickly about £32,000. And that has remained inactive ever since. To be fair, GoFundMe have said it is above board.
Yes.
But it seems a bit strange. Why would you raise £32,000 when you know the police are looking? Anyway, this is another theory that Jay was a drug mule, that he came to Tenerife to meet an associate, and indeed he was given a backpack of packets of pills worth an estimated £17,000, and that when he phoned Lucy, I suppose Lucy could or could not confirm this, although I can tell you we tried to phone her, she kept saying, I'm too tired. So something all a bit strange. Anyway, this associate is saying that Lucy got a phone call from Jay at 3 a.m. crying because he'd lost the bag, which would indicate that somehow or other he may have fallen foul of nefarious types who might have punished him.
Well, it is important to remember that those groups of islands have a notorious reputation for being involved in gang culture, kind of mafia-style culture. So, that one, there is something to this one, if I'm being brutally honest, because of that element within Tenerife and surrounding islands. But I think this is, out of all of them that I've seen, this is the one I think has got a significant whiff of credibility.
Yeah. What was he up to Nogal, or did he fall in with bad types? I mean, Playa de las Americas, Los Cristianos are awash with drugs. I mean, drug dealers, whether or not it's a big deal or a small deal, if you don't pay up, they tend to be rather harsh in their punishment, in their retribution. So was it maybe a small deal that he didn't pay for or something like that? I mean, one doesn't want to fear the worst, but, tomorrow will be the 13th day of this search. Unlucky for some, unlucky for Jay. And, with every passing moment, you think, well, you fear the worst, don't you?
Yeah, of course you do. And I just find it fascinating that in 2024, a person is just able to vanish. Without any trace. That's the thing that I find interesting. Without any major trace of them. I said that I thought the same thing when the doctor went missing. Do you know the TV doctor?
I was like,
Mike, that's the one. I was like, how do you go missing? How is that possible? That there's not a CCTV camera or just anything of your image or something. In this day and age.
But this one is more mysterious than Michael Mosley. I mean, so which makes you feel. Or makes you speculate that he may have been, something bad happened to him and he's deliberately been hidden.
Yes, for sure. Given if you throw in the drugs element of it wouldn't surprise me.
Well, anyway, I mean, give us a call if you like. I mean, God knows what's going on out there, but it gets more sad by the day. And for all we've just been talking about, of course, everyone keeps their fingers crossed that Jay will be found alive and well. But that mystery, as I say, like all mysteries, they become more mysterious by the moment. I mean, as you say, 13 days and not a single sign. Massive police search. And the other thing I was going to say is I felt the story, you know, he went off to a very remote part of the island where it's very difficult to find people. You know, all seemed a bit convenient.
Yeah, definitely.
So lots of, this is an evening for unanswered questions. There's a lot of unanswered questions in Tenerife, but fingers crossed they'll find Jay and he's okay. We certainly hope that for the sake of his poor parents who've flown out there to help in the search for their missing boy.
The story, of course, that we're going to talk to you about, Katie, is the latest twist in the study, or the Jay Slater Tenerife story. Missing now for what, third week, is it?
2 weeks now.
Yeah, so this is sort of entering the third week. The police have decided to call off the search, which is the latest kind of mad twist in this mad story.
Yes, that's right. So they announced yesterday that they'd no longer have like boots on the ground, people searching for him. The case is still very much open. Right. So if there's any more tip-offs, lines of inquiry, they'll still be looking into those. But in terms of the actual active search, that will no longer be going on unless something else crops up.
So they haven't actually found any trace of him at all, have they, at this point?
No, that's right. They've been doing a very extensive search, especially in the surrounding areas of where he was last known to be. Right. But they found no trace of him. And on Saturday, they did do what they sort of marketed as like a big final push, where they appealed for volunteers to come and help. As we understand, less than a dozen volunteers turned up to help. They scoured an area they'd already been over, but yes, they've found no trace.
Right. And his family obviously are all now mostly in Tenerife, I think. They're all, you know, hoping to see if something changes and that they can see some sign of life. But, you know, his mother's been asking to get access to the money that's been raised in the GoFundMe amount. I think that's about 35,000 or something, right?
I think it's up to 44,000.
Is it 44? So people are still donating then?
Yes, very much so. There's donations coming in every day still. And yes, his family are all still out there. They vowed to continue the search. I think they've been left quite bewildered. They can't understand why the search has ended so abruptly after just 2 weeks. I mean, Jay went missing 2 weeks ago today, actually. Right. And they can't understand, as any family wouldn't understand, why you're no longer looking for our son. So they're going to remain there.
And I mean, if he has vanished in the mountains, you know, there's not much chance that he would still be alive, I presume. But they've even had drones and things up, haven't they, looking for him in very, very big areas.
Yes, they've had drones up there, helicopters. They've had specialist sniffer dogs flown in from Madrid to help find him. But yes, they found absolutely no trace of him. But this Masca ravine, it is so vast. I mean, it's 2,000 feet deep as such. Right. And there's also caves. You know, there's crevices. He could have fallen down. Right. So yes, police did say last week that if he has disappeared in the mountains, unfortunately at this point it's unlikely to be found alive.
Right. And I mean, one of the things that the family have said is that they feel as though the trolls have won, because they're putting out so many weird conspiracy theories about whether he could be still alive, whether there was any drugs involved in something that happened, whether or not, you know, his friend Lucy actually spoke to him more recently than she says. You know, all of these stories keep resurfacing, don't they?
That's right. Social media has been crazy the last couple of weeks. People making up their own theories, peddling these awful conspiracy theories, you know, spewing baseless claims. It's been constant. They've been hounding the family, just sharing awful comments. And, the family do feel that the trolls have won. Right. They've been saying so many awful things, and now the search has stopped. Right.
And I mean, again, a great big piece in the Daily Mail today from Guy Adams, who's actually out there, you know, questions that still remain unanswered. Why did Jay try to walk out of Masca? Did he end up in a nearby town? Why did he leave the road? Where are his friends? Was he kidnapped? You know, it just, the list goes on, doesn't it? Yeah,
there's so many unanswered questions that we don't know if we're going to find the answers anytime soon. That's why his family is still staying out there. But yes, so many questions, as you say, Mike.
Yeah, and so, I mean, presumably, now that they've stopped looking, they're not going to find him, are they?
I mean, not necessarily. I suppose if there's a sighting or something, or, you know, there's a lot of hikers do walks through that area. Right. So say they see a piece of clothing, then again, they would get people back out searching, and they are still looking into different lines of inquiry.
And you would think, wouldn't you, in this day and age with the sort of technology that we've got, that if he did have a phone, even if it was switched off and if it had run out of battery, there'd be some way of tracking that.
Yes, you would think so nowadays. But
Because
I
we're
mean,
used to watching all these TV shows, aren't we, where they've got triangulation sort of masts everywhere, and they can go, oh, well, here's where he was when he made his last call. This is where he must be.
yes, I mean, they had the location of his last phone call because it pinged a nearby tower. But then, as we understand, his phone died. So
Right.
I'm not sure how much technology they have now to track phones if they've lost their battery.
If they've lost their battery, yeah. And again, British police have asked if they wanted for help, and they weren't asked, so they're not involved in it at all at this point.
No, they're not involved at all. Police in Tenerife declined their help, so I'm not sure if they'll offer again now that the on-the-ground search is over. I'm not sure.
Yeah. Astonishing story. Well, Casey, thanks again for keeping us updated. I guess we'll wait and see what happens this week, but it doesn't look good, does it?
No, not at the moment.
It doesn't, unfortunately. We're also going to talk about what is going on in Tenerife, because, of course, as usual, we've got yet another development overnight in the story that's kept everybody completely and utterly baffled as to what actually happened to Jay Slater. Casey Davis is here with us, senior foreign reporter of The Sun. Casey, very good morning to you. Thanks for joining us. Stranger than the last time you were here, we've got yet another twist in the tale, which we didn't know about until yesterday. Supposedly, Jay pinched a £12,000 Rolex watch just before he vanished.
Yes, so Mark Williams-Thomas, who has been investigating the case himself away from the official investigation, he says he's spoken to a lot of witnesses, a lot of Jay's friends and families, trying to piece together Jay's last movements. Now, he claims that Jay left the Airbnb he went to feeling scared. He said he didn't want to return to it, but he said also in the hire car he was in with the two British men after he left the club on the way to the Airbnb, he claims Jay sent a Snapchat saying that he had stolen a Rolex watch. He said he hasn't been able to stand that up officially, like with theft reports, but Jay's friends told Mark that he wouldn't make up such a claim.
Right. So, as far as the sort of investigator is concerned, and he's quite a well-known investigator, isn't he, Jake, that this is something that obviously happened. But the big question in the Sun story today, why did two men take my Jay back to the villa? And this is obviously, you know, his dad saying this to your reporter out there. So there's still an awful lot of questions.
Yes, it does feel that way. There's a lot of gaps in the story at the moment. Even Jay's parents are questioning what on earth happened.
Right.
They can't understand why their son, who is just 19 years old, why did he go back to this Airbnb with two men who are much older?
And
one
who
of them
he
was
didn't know,
31.
right?
Yes, well, apparently the man who has spoken out, the 31-year-old, he said he knew Jay through friends.
Yeah.
Brad, who is Jay's close friend, said last week that they met these men whilst they were on holiday, but it's unclear how well they actually knew each other, so we're not sure why Jay would have gone back with them.
And is the suggestion then, to put the two stories kind of together, that the £12,000 Rolex that was pinched from that place?
Potentially. I mean, we're not 100% sure. The stuff around the watch isn't completely been cleared up. There was reports last week that police were looking into a theft at the club Jay was at of a watch, and they were looking at CCTV and speaking to witnesses, but there's a lot of gaps in that story still.
Yeah, exactly right. Because I got the impression, I think I mentioned this to you last time you were here, that when the police said they were not going to be looking for him anymore, it didn't sound like they didn't think they were going to stop looking for him because they thought he was dead. It was more that they didn't think he was there, even.
Yes, potentially. I mean, they feel like they had searched the ground so extensively and they couldn't keep searching forever. They'd searched for going on for 2 weeks. So they said they'd make it more of an investigation, like looking into tip-offs and new information rather than just scouring the ground.
Yeah. And, I mean, I suppose it's impossible to know the answers to this question, but is it possible that he's left Tenerife and that he's come back home? Or, I mean, could he even do that without being spotted?
I mean, that's a good question, but again, it's all down to sort of speculation, which we're trying not to do. I know there's a lot on social media, people speculating what might have happened to him, but at this point it is unclear. We don't have any reason to believe Jay may have left Tenerife, but again, we're not sure at this stage.
And the father tells Ryan Parry in Tenerife again that he's actually quite angry about the way the police are handling this whole thing.
Yes, the family very much feel like they've been left in the dark. Jay's dad, Warren, yes, he spoke to my colleague Ryan in Tenerife yesterday, and he said he was almost gone past the stage of feeling sad, and he just felt really angry because he doesn't feel like enough's maybe been done to find his son.
And he says, do you think they should be still searching? If it was in England, I'd be causing a stink, but because we're in a foreign country, we've got to leave it to the people who know best. And also, of course, they're still facing quite a bit of criticism of the family, aren't they? Because they're accessing some of the money that's been donated, if you like, to their GoFundMe page.
Yes, but, you know, the GoFundMe, the donations have been sent by well-wishers and supporters, so the family have every right to use it for what they want to use it. I think there's just been a lot of trolls online, like a phenomenal amount, who have just been spewing vile comments at the family, which is just unfair, really.
Right, and also the guy who's out there, Jake, that you mentioned earlier, he's been saying that, you know, it's all very well for people to want to help, but, you know, it's probably not very helpful to try and solve the crime by, you know, sort of amateur sleuthing and to be going out there and sort of getting in the way of the police effort.
Yeah, exactly. We've got a lot of armchair detectives and such in this country who've just been trying to come up with their own theories, which doesn't really help anyone. The wild speculation just harms the family.
No, I mean, there is this kind of obsession, isn't there, with true life crime. I mean, there's podcasts all over the place that are put out there. There's all manner of, you know, every time there's a court case now, it seems, there's somebody doing a podcast about the case.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's human nature to wonder, it's human nature to speculate, but what I think is really unhelpful is people setting up Facebook groups, coming up with theories, trying to dig out things. Like, who is that helping? It's not helping the police, it's not helping the family. Like, let the police and the family do their jobs, trying to find Jay.
Yeah, it was strange. I mean, one of the things we saw, I think we mentioned this the last time we spoke, was, you know, people saying, oh, should we stop the Euros? Should we, you know, prevent people from playing football while Jay's still missing? Almost as if, you know, that's the most important thing in the world, which of course it is to his family. But, you know, it's all out of all proportion, really, isn't it?
Yes, I mean, this case has been a huge amount of interest, like one of the greatest amount of interest I've ever seen in a case like this. But, you know, other things are going on in the world, but there is a lot of focus on this.
Yeah, there really is. Well, once again, Katie, thank you very much for coming to see us. The story continues to baffle everybody. Nobody really knows for sure when or where it will all end, but there's an awful lot of people investigating it, in addition now to the police in Tenerife. We'll keep you updated as soon as anything else happens.
Although the official police search was called off on Sunday, the mystery about what the hell happened to him, he disappeared like 2 Mondays ago, never to be seen of again. Nothing, not a sign. So the mystery deepens almost by the hour. And part of the heated debate around this saga has centred on these 2 British guys who took Jay, who drove Jay away from a kind of rave night in the holiday zone of Tenerife at 5 a.m. back to their very remote Airbnb in this sort of wilderness area on the north of the island. So why did they do that? We don't know. And guess what? It turns out that one of them, a guy called Ayub Qasim, who invited Jay, 19-year-old, back to their rented holiday cottage, is a convicted drug dealer who was jailed 9 years ago for being the mastermind of a sophisticated operation to flood Wales with Class A drugs. Now, some of the discourse surrounding what's happened to Jay has centred on the possibility that somehow or other it may have been a drugs deal that went wrong. Now, the Spanish police, the Tenerife police, have interviewed these 2 guys, and they keep saying they're irrelevant. Well, they must have a story to tell, Isabel.
Completely.
You know, why did they take him away in their car at 5 a.m? What state was he in? We're now hearing from this British investigator, what's his name, Mark Williams-Thomas. He's saying that it could be that one narrative suggests he stole a £12,000 Rolex watch and was in a state of great terror. But all this guy, Ayub Qasim, we don't even know who the other one is, has said is he came to my Airbnb alive and he left my Airbnb alive.
Brilliant.
I mean,
well, that's encouraging.
Can't the Spanish police tell us something?
Yeah, it's an incredible case. You mentioned before we got into this discussion that I hadn't really locked into the story. Sometimes you just can't be across every story.
There's been a lot of other things going on.
I just sort of passed on it, and then you said this is an amazing story, so I started reading up on it, and I was absolutely drawn in by it. So one of the reasons this story has not had the ongoing coverage in the UK media that you might expect
that it would warrant,
is essentially, and let me be very plain here, it's because it's a young man, not a girl. If it was a woman, we would have a lot more media coverage of it, and because there is a strong sense that there is what newspapers call a bit of low-lifery about this. You know, that this guy and the people he surrounds himself with have been up to some forms of no good.
Yes.
So he's not seen by the media to be an innocent victim. And that is why there's not a huge outcry and that everybody isn't trying to work out where he is. You know, all the usual conspiracy theorists, there's not quite such a mass of them. When I read the detail of it, I must admit that I thought 100% drugs are involved in this. You know, it seemed to me highly suspect that he always, according to reports and from credible outlets, when he's on the dance floor in nightclubs, no shirt on, but a black rucksack.
Yeah.
I mean,
what's in the rucksack, folks?
Who does that?
They're not aspirins.
And it's a hot place, right?
Yeah.
I mean, the rucksack's not a comfortable thing.
Yeah.
So that seemed to me a big giveaway.
Yeah.
The other thing that I think has been completely underexplored is the one of the women that he set off on the trip with. So there was a group of them, wasn't there, that took this holiday together. And there's a young lady as part of that, Lucy. I would like to know a lot more about who she is and what she does. I saw a list of all the places that she's travelled to on holiday recently, and I must say that it didn't look like what you would call an average pattern of behaviour.
Quite. And so... you know, yes, he is not a saint. He's got this conviction for violence and so on and so forth. But it's really weird the way the Spanish police, I guess, have got every right to do things in their own way. But there's been a total lack of communication. They've never given one press conference about this. There are no posters or pictures of him anywhere in Tenerife. And people are saying, well, tell us more about these two guys, these two British guys, who seem to me central to the equation. And the Spanish police say they are totally irrelevant. They are not totally irrelevant. Why? Why did he go on this hour-long car journey at 5 a.m. after spending a night in a sort of drug party?
When his actual accommodation was just round the corner.
Yes.
Where normally at the end of a big night out, you'd just be ready to go to bed, wouldn't you? Not get in a car for another hour to go somewhere totally random. I completely agree with you. Those guys have disappeared, haven't they? We think they're back in the UK.
Well, they left one day afterwards.
So, I mean, journalists may have to take the lead on this. This is what we do. We track them down and talk to those British guys, and they should have a pretty interesting tale to tell.
Yeah, and I mean, again, the police say, well, the search is off, but the investigation continues. I mean, you know, people go, oh, these conspiracy theories, it's so terrible the way people are doing this. Well, when you have a vacuum of information, people will speculate. And one of the speculations is that this kid got involved in a drugs deal or something that went wrong and perhaps was disposed of. They can't find him because he's been hidden. We hope that isn't the case, but you cannot help conclude that something other than he just went missing happened.
A happier possibility is that he's pulled off a tremendous conjuring act, and it does happen. Do you remember the canoe couple? I mean, people do achieve this. I slightly suspect that he's not perhaps the smartest cookie, and probably pulling something like that off with the resources he had was a stretch too far. But that would be a sort of happier outcome, wouldn't it, if he's decided to get the heck out?
Well, let's have fingers crossed, because never mind his background, you know, his parents are out there, they're distraught.
These are real people, and I did slightly feel when you said, well, let's talk about the story, and I was slightly rubbing my hands. Actually, you know, this is a young man, he's got a family, and it's a human thing, this.
Indeed. Well, we hope that Jay does turn up, that they find him, but we will continue reporting on this because, as I say, the mystery is nowhere near being solved. Let's talk about Jay Slater. 29 days after the British teen went missing on the holiday island of Tenerife, the remains of a body have been found in the remote area where he disappeared. His belongings apparently have been found around the body, so it does seem like it's him. We can't 100% confirm it, but it does seem as if they have located Jay Slater. Let's go over to Tenerife and talk to a Brit who lives there. He's a YouTuber. He hosts the Night Strider YouTube. And his name is Andrew Knight, who spoke to us before. Welcome, Andrew.
Evening, Kevin.
Well, it looks like they've found him. what do you know? From what I hear, Andrew, it looks as if we are talking about the right person, and let's face it, we probably are, it looks as if he simply fell from some mountainside up in this remote area where the search has been going on.
Yeah, so we did hear from the Guardia Civil earlier on. They did release a statement to say that they had found human remains and a body in a very difficult location in Masca. They did say that it strongly suggests that it is missing Jay Slater that they have found. They've also said that where he is located, it does seem like he has slipped or fallen or had some form of accident to end up where he is. It's not too far from where the phone last pinged. We've heard from the charity that was working alongside the family as well. They've come out and said that his belongings were found along with those remains, clothing and a phone, I believe it was. So that's the latest that has come out today, but they strongly believe it is accidental and he has had some form of fall.
Mm-hmm. And any idea who made the discovery? I mean, because Spanish police, was it last Sunday or was it the one before? They called off the search, didn't they? So do you know any idea who was searching, or did the Spanish police go back, or what was going on? Do you know?
So it is the Guardia Civil that have made the discovery. They actually continued the search almost a little bit under the radar. They didn't make it widely sort of known or public, but they did continue searching. They had their own investigation going on, their own routes that they wanted to cover, basically without prying eyes and onlookers watching over them. So they did carry on, and it is the Guardia Civil that made the discovery, that have made the statement and announced that they have made that discovery.
Yeah, well, I mean, in some ways, I mean, it's horrible, obviously, but for Jay's mum, Debbie Duncan, who's over there, his dad is there, his brother's there, he's got a close circle of friends who have been worried about him over there. I mean, this is, you know, a horrible outcome, but at least it brings some closure to what has been a really painful mystery. You know, I mean, the idea that this guy just completely disappeared and they couldn't find any sign must have been agony for the family. So in some small way, knowing what happened is better than not knowing, isn't it?
Yeah, I agree. I think the only small positive you can take from it is that they will now start to seek a bit of closure, get the answers that they've been looking for, and they have actually found him and got their boy back. But it is absolutely devastating for the family. Can't imagine what they're going through at the moment. The mood in Tenerife seems a bit different today. Mix of great sadness for the family, also that little bit of relief that they've got him back, got those answers potentially. But yeah, extremely sad.
Because you're down there in the, what you might call the holiday zone, aren't you? Los Cristianos and Playa de las Americas. And it's from that area that Jay disappeared, God knows how long ago now, 29 days ago, when he was at some kind of ravey musical event, and he left in the small hours of the morning to go with a couple of British guys up to this very remote area. A lot of discussion about these two guys. I think probably we owe them something of an apology now. It does look as if Jay just wandered off, as we had speculated at the beginning, hit these very, very remote trails, lost his footing and fell. But I've been looking today, Andrew, at some of the footage of the area. This is the generic stuff, but I saw some new footage. It really, really is rough terrain around there, isn't it?
Absolutely extreme. And even the pictures on the TV, in the media, until you're there in front of it, you just cannot understand how treacherous it is. Steep, loose underfoot, cacti everywhere, huge drop-offs of cliffs, ravines. So it's very easy to get lost, disorientated, slip, fall, end up in a bad situation very, very quickly. A lot of the areas they've been searching now deeper in required specialist mountain equipment, ropes, climbing facilities. It's extreme.
Yeah, and of course the other thing about this area where Jay disappeared is the weather is strange, isn't it? It can be boiling hot bright sunshine. 10 minutes later, this is all due to the mountains, isn't it? You can, a storm will come in, it can get very windy. So it's not sort of guaranteed like Mediterranean sunshine weather, is it?
No, it's got its own little microclimate, Masca. So 1 minute you can be in the sunshine, next minute you've got low cloud, a bit of rain, bit of drizzle, then the wind will pick up, then it'll be sunny again. That area around where his phone last pinged as well, quite a bit of a sun trap. Once you go down into those valleys, you lose that breeze a little bit. You're protected by the mountainside, and it can just become baking hot. That's coming up from the floor. The heat is radiating from the floor down on your head from above. There's no shade around. So along with the extreme landscape, you've got extreme weather as well.
So you said there's a bit of a suppressed mood where you are today, but again, you know, no one wants to take away from the tragedy of all this, but at least now, as I say, you've got some closure to this mystery. You know what happened, and I guess you guys in the holiday zone, you know, the clouds can lift and you can get on with enjoying yourself.
Yeah, it's mainly getting that closure for the family and getting the answers that they deserve. And the Guardia Civil police have worked extremely hard. Their investigation will obviously continue until it closes, and we'll find out more information. And a lot of people have got all kinds of different questions, but the police will continue to work behind the scenes, do what they need to do. They work a little bit differently to the UK police in terms of releasing information and updates on what they're up to. They do a lot of it behind the scenes. They'll crack on, and then I think we will slowly start to find all the answers that everyone's looking for and more of exactly what has happened.
Police, Spanish police, it appears, have found human remains as part of their search for British teenager Jay Slater in Tenerife. We're pleased to be joined now by Peter Blexley, former Met Police detective. Peter, very good afternoon to you. How are you?
Yeah, very well, thank you.
We speak sometimes and we get angry, and sometimes it's tragic, and this is another story. I don't understand enough about this story. Fill me in. This is a kid, a 19-year-old from Lancashire, hasn't been heard of for well over a month. The Civil Guard says that whilst a formal identification needs to take place, all evidence suggests they found some stuff that belonged to Jay Slater near the remains. They say he may have suffered an accident or a fall. What else do we know, Pete?
Well, it's 4 weeks ago today that Jay Slater was reported missing by his friend and travelling companion that he went to Tenerife with. He travelled out there with two friends to attend a music festival called NRG in Playas de las Americas. And after he'd left that music event one evening, he got in a car with two men and went on a journey of about an hour to a place called Masca in the north of Tenerife. When he left these men's apartment on the Monday morning, 4 weeks ago today, he took a Snapchat photograph of himself, but most importantly, he rang his friend Lucy and told her that he had 1% power left on his battery, on his mobile phone, that he had nothing to drink and that he was thirsty and that he was in unfamiliar terrain. In other words, he was in a fairly mountainous, craggy, rugged, difficult to negotiate part of the northern part of the island of Tenerife. His friend, rightfully, was concerned and reported him missing to police just a couple of hours later. Thereafter, the Guardia Civil, the Spanish police, launched a hunt for Jay using whatever resources were at their disposal. And that was essentially a helicopter, sometimes, drones, search dogs, firefighters who were used to tackling blazes in that part of the land, a mountain rescue team, and they didn't manage to find anything until today, 4 weeks later, when they found remains, which, whilst there has been no positive identification, all the pointers are that this, sadly and tragically, is Jay Slater.
We had the story a couple of months ago about that BBC doctor who slipped or fell and was out in hot conditions and passed. I mean, he was 250 yards from a restaurant, for goodness sake. Are there other beliefs around this, or do they think this is a tragic sort of, you know, is an accident, or are people believing there could be more to this story? Because I found it really weird, right? I'm just being honest with you. Seems to be in the papers every single day about they're scaling back the police operation, the parents want money out of the GoFund package, and the dad says this and the mother says that. Seems to have been it seems to have been sort of reported in a slightly weird way, Pete. Would you agree with me?
Well, I think the reason the story garnered so much attention was that it was a very ordinary story about young people going to a Spanish island for a holiday.
Yeah.
It happens thousands upon thousands of times. But this ordinary story became very extraordinary because of some of the factors, like he left the club with these two elder men and drove for an hour in a vehicle. And all of these kind of things merely fueled the fire of the armchair detectives, the online sleuths, and all those people who have got nothing better to do with their lives other than to spread conspiracy theories, gossip, rumour, and claptrap. And this went on and on and on for 4 weeks, was very, very hurtful to the family, and quite frankly, achieved diddly squat.